So welcome to the ins and outs of StoryPoints. I'm Alicia. I'm the program manager on the StoryPoints feature at Tableau. Helping with this talk is Anila. She is a test automation writer on the StoryPoints team. And Saskia and Ryan, who have both created some awesome stories that they're going to share with you towards the end of this talk. So during the next hour, first, I'm going to talk a little bit about why we decided to create the StoryPoints feature. Anila is going to walk you through basically how to use the feature. And then Saskia and Ryan are going to share their stories. Since there are a lot of people here, I'm going to ask that we save our questions until the end. We'll have about 15 minutes. So to start out talking about why we decided to create the feature, I'm going to go all the way back to the mission of Tableau, help people see and understand data. You've probably seen this a lot. You probably already know this is our mission. But this is still our mission because our goal is to help you bring your data to life. As you know, seeing a picture of something really helps you understand it a lot better than something like this, which when you turn it to something like that, there's your picture, published by Tim Ellis on Tableau Public, or this, the map of earthquake data that we've been seeing a lot through the last couple of days. So we also know that even though this makes your data a lot easier to understand, it could be even easier. We've actually seen people telling stories throughout history, before recorded history, all throughout, and even today. We're seeing news sites that are utilizing data in new ways that they never have before, and they're telling stories with it. You can see with this one, it kind of ties it back into you. You're entering your birthday to figure out where you are in this data set. So we wanted to push data discovery even further than we already have. Not just helping you to understand your data, but helping you communicate what you found in your data out to other people too. So that way you can turn your dashboards that look like this, which sometimes and often actually include a more painful experience that looks a little bit like this, where you're typing in your email exactly what to do with the dashboard so that someone can understand it better, into a story that looks a little bit more like this. So it's strong enough to stand on its own when you send it out. And with that, I'm going to let Anila show you exactly how.
Test. Okay, thank you, Alicia. Thanks.
There you go.
Cool. Let's see. Okay. So good morning, everyone. Looks like all of you are feeling sleepy. Do you want to do some jumping jacks? No? Okay. Is everyone ready to create a story together?
Yes.
A little louder, please.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Before we start, a note, this is going to be a beginner level session. I'm going to walk you through the basic features of storytelling. We're going to create a story together so you can see how to use the feature. But if you are looking for something more in depth, and if you're already familiar with StoryPoints, you can still stick around. You might learn something. But I would encourage you to check out other talks which are intermediate level ones. There was one by Robert Kosara yesterday. You should probably listen to that. It was really good. He said how to create a really convincing good story. So I would encourage you to look at that. Okay. Is there anyone from the Bay Area here? Anyone? Okay. Do you guys experience the earthquake last month? Oh.
I slept through it.
Oh, okay. That's good. Yeah, I hope there were not too many damages. Okay. Anyone wants to take a guess at what is the data set we're going to look at to create our story? Got it right. Cool. So yeah, we're going to look at some I'll walk you through the data set so that you have an idea what we're going to look at. We have 3 dashboards here today. We're going to look at the dashboards, see what we find interesting in it, and try creating a story with that. So the first one is a map quiz where we have earthquake data since 1973 plotted out on the globe. And those small circles show the magnitude. We have all magnitudes from 4 and above. And the size of it shows how big of the earthquake that is. So that's one dashboard we have. And all of you are really good at creating awesome dashboards. I know that, so we're not going to go into that. And the next one is a time plot of all earthquakes. So its x-axis has the year, and y-axis has the number of earthquakes in that year. And this is something which got me interested in this data set. Like if you see, do you see anything curious about this? Anyone? Yeah, right. And it's been like going up, like the trend is upwards. I'm like, why is that? Why are earthquakes per year increasing? So that's something I can see many of you mention that. So let's try finding the story behind that. And there's one more dashboard, which is the same one, but just split across the different regions, APAC, EMEA, and Americas. And you can see very clearly that the APAC region is the one which is contributing towards upward trend, and that's what we're going to look at. Cool. So let's create the story. And to create a new story, you can go to the menu, story menu, and say new story, and then you have your new story. And let's see. Let's look at this feature. So if you give me a second, the resolution is really low on the screen, so I'm going to change it quickly so we can see it all. Okay. So when you start a story, you might want to put a introduction screen. So I'm going to start with like pulling in a description. You can pull in a description anywhere. If you have a Viz, you can pull it onto it, and we're going to do that later. So I'm going to see, let's take a look at some earthquake data. You can format it however you want. I'm going to leave it as such now. This is going to be my first story point. And I'm showing you this so that I can show you how to use descriptions. You can size it. Okay, this looks pretty. Next, so we can duplicate a story point, or we can create a new blank point and drag in whatever we want into that. So just to show you what new blank point is, I'm going to create one more slide and drag in another description, just so we know how the feature looks like. Another intro slide. I mean, just for fun. Intro again. Okay. So next, let's start by creating our story. To set a context, let's look at all the earthquake data. So all you have to do, just like the rest of Tableau, is drag and drop. So you have a neat little feature where you can go on the side and look at, if there are a lot of dashboards and you don't know which one is which, you can just slide over it, and we have thumbnails showing which dashboard it is. So we're going to start with this one. So you just drag and drop it where you want it to be. And there you go. I'm not so happy. Like, I have to use scroll bars to see the entire one. And you might be thinking, oh my God, now I have to go and change the exact pixel size, the resolution, so that it has to fit in correctly. You don't have to do so much. We have an easy way. You just have to go back to the dashboard, go to the sizing, say fit to story 1, and it will fit exactly like how it should fit into that, so you don't have to use scroll bars. Nice. And that reminds me, I should be calling my story something other than story 1. Let's call it. So all you have to do is right-click on the story, double-click on the story, and you can give it a story name, the sheet name, and let's give a title to our story. All you have to do again is double-click on it, and you can say, earthquakes, why are they on the rise? That's what we're going to look at. There we go. We have an intro slide, we have a title, we have our first story point, and looks like since 1973 we have like 130,000 earthquakes for 40 years. That's like hundreds of earthquakes. So you can write anything on your caption, but like you can say what you're trying to say in that story. If it's something small, you can put it in the caption, or you can add descriptions or annotations as to what you want to point on it. So this is pretty simple, so I'm going to write it on the caption. Hundreds of earthquakes across the globe. Okay. Now so the beautiful thing about story points is they're interactive. You can go play with it, and then you can, if you find something interesting, you can create a new story point out of it, or you can choose not to go ahead with it, or if you want to go in some other direction, you can go explore that way. So let's go and explore. We know that earthquakes, which are so small in magnitude, are not actually causing too much damage. So I'm interested in seeing how many earthquakes are big and how many of them are there. So let's use the slider and go, okay, it's reducing, it's reducing. Okay, so this is a number I can wrap my head around. 120 earthquakes over 40 years. That's around 3 earthquakes per year. Cool, so that's something interesting I found and I want to share that. So I can do one thing, I can update this and change my caption to say I found this, but I still want the person I'm telling the story to have the previous context. So I can say save as a new point. If I don't want it, I can use this revert button on top. If I update, it's going to update with this change. Or if I say save as a new point, it's going to keep this as a new point where I can add the information only around 3 earthquakes, 3 major earthquakes. Per year. And if you see, the previous story point still exists. It has the context data we had set up earlier. And we saved a new story point. You found something interesting, you saved it as a new story point. And then we added a caption for it. And I would like to show you an annotation feature, so I was thinking about what I should be showing you. And then I remembered another dev in our team. So she was in Japan during the mega quake in 2011. So I was like, okay, let me take a look at that, and probably we can annotate that because I'm interested in telling a story which I want to point to that particular information. I know it was a big earthquake, so let me drill in a little more. Here's Japan. So you see how the map zoomed in, and now I'm interested in this. I can right click, say annotate, and we can set up the annotation. You can size it how you want, place it where you want. We have that, and I'm going to save that as a new point. The Japan megaquake. Cool. We have looked at quite a few features, but we are nowhere near our story. We were interested in why they were increasing with time. Now let's go take a look at that. You can drag and drop, or you can even double click on dashboard, and that'll create a story point. Wait, this is not sized. Let me go back and size it quickly. Fit to earthquake story. Fit to earthquake story. Cool. So we have it fit perfectly. And we find it curious that it is increasing, but when we are telling a story, we want to point that out. Somebody is looking at it. So we want to add a description telling, hey, look at this. This is increasing with time. So I'm going to drag in a description here, just like how we used in our intro slide. Like, this is increasing. Okay. Time. So the story point, like how Alicia was mentioning, it stands by itself. You don't have to write a long email and explain, oh, see, this is what I found in this dashboard, and then go look at this dashboard. This is what I'm finding in it. This stands by itself. You look at it, and somebody who comes in and sees, they can see what you found interesting in that. So I'm going to name this upward trend. And let's look at the other. And I want to point out that it's the Asian region which is having an increasing trend. So I can probably mention it in the caption. You don't need a description everywhere. You don't want to clutter the viz. So APAC region contributing to the upward trend. And I'm going to update this. Cool. And I want to play with this data and see why is it increasing. So the first thing that came to my mind was, did you see that I duplicated the sheet? I want to keep this, but I duplicated the sheet and I'm going to play with it. And I got a duplicate sheet. And my first guess was, what if I look at earthquakes which are a little more major, like just how we did with the big earthquake, the map was. I'm going to try going up slightly up, like say from 5. Ooh, do you see what happened? It actually is having a similar trend. It's not having a dramatic increase like what we saw before. This kind of makes sense to me. Do you know why when I moved from 4 to 5, it kind of, the trend did not go up that high. Any guesses, anyone? Exactly, yeah. So we have started reporting more, like more smaller earthquakes are being detected. That's probably why. I don't know if exactly that's the reason, but this kind of looks like that's probably why it had an upward trend. So it's like, ooh, so probably more earthquakes, smaller earthquakes are being detected. Okay, yeah, so I'm kind of following what Robert had mentioned in his talk yesterday. So you start out with something interesting, you set the context, and then you go through the story and try figuring out, and then you have a conclusion. You reach the story arc, you reach a conclusion where you have found a story, and now it's ready to be shared with someone. So you can send this off to someone, and they can take a look at it. It can stand by itself. Or if you want to use it in a presentation mode, you can go to presentation mode. So you can do F7, or you can go presentation. Oh, where are we? So somebody can, so you can present this, and all you have to do is go right, and then you can go through each story point and make a convincing case. So you have a story, you have interesting data, and you have a story, you found a story in it, and you reach a conclusion and you want to share it with someone else. So that's a quick intro to how to create a simple story. And at Tableau, we always want to help you understand your data better. And with story points, we believe you can not only create awesome wizards and dashboards that you already create, but you can also use it to explore more into your data, find interesting stories, and share it with others easily. And what makes you happy makes us happy. Cool. So now that you guys have a context of how to create a story, how to create a basic story, I'm sure you can appreciate what Saskia and Ryan here have to share with you. They have two awesome stories they're going to share with you, and I'm sure you can appreciate it better now. Thanks.
All right. Let me fix this quickly. Well, thank you, ladies. It's always great, of course, to hear from the people who build our software that we all love so much. So that's a really, really good chance to hear that from the people who build it. Now, I'm not on the development team. And what am I doing here? Thanks. Clearly, I'm not. So my name is Saskia. I'm a product consultant out of our office in London. Does anyone here know about a little competition that is going on right now on this floor? It's called the Iron Viz. Anyone aware of this? Yeah. So for those of you who aren't, it's an established tradition at Tableau where people get really, really competitive. They want to kind of show off their awesome viz-making power. So the way this competition works is that you get a data set. I think it's about 24 hours in advance. You kind of have the chance to have a look at it, do maybe a little bit of exploration, and then when it's showtime, the contestants are sat upon a stage, hooked up to large monitors, and they have to start with a blank workbook, so no prep. And within the hour that they're on the stage, they have to create all of their analyses, put them together in an awesome dashboard, and then they're judged on that result, right? It's pretty intense, right? People get really into it. It's a lot of fun to watch. It's incredibly scary to participate, but it's a good time for everyone. So we do something similar internally within Tableau, and it happened earlier this year, and I would like to share my story that I built during the finals on stage. So this is this one. The data is about our very own Tableau Public. So those of you who aren't aware of Tableau Public, that's our amazing platform where everyone can share their own visualizations that they make with public data and make that available to everyone. So that's a really, really awesome way to share whatever you come up with. And I encourage you all to check that out. So my story is called So You Think You're Popular? And it's about the most popular vizzes on Tableau Public. Now, to start out with, I've made 2 vizzes on Tableau Public. One of them we would see here if my internet connection was better. This is actually just the browser that I'm popping into the story. But in case that you don't know this one, it's about deprivation in London. So where the poorer areas are, kind of what the distribution is in there. It's a serious topic, right? It deserves to be noticed. And then also very, very important topic that I made a viz on is, and you cannot see it, that's a shame. It's such a good viz. Let me see if we can refresh this. Yeah, okay. Sorry about that, guys. But if you don't know this viz, and I know it's very, very popular, it's about which food is the coolest on Instagram. So 2 very important vizzes, right? One more, a little bit more political. The other one is just very current, let's say. It's current. So I made these 2 vizzes, and I'm very, very pleased to see that they made it to the top 2 of all Tableau Public vizzes. So the first 2 bars here are those 2 vizzes, which is amazing, because we're looking at the number of vizzes down at the x-axis. And I feel really good about this, especially when you look at a 3rd entry, which is a viz called The Tale of 100. You might be familiar with that. It's lots of tech companies, and you kind of see their performance, especially if you know that the author of that is Christian Chabot. So I feel pretty good about myself right about now. I do some further analysis here, and the highlighted orange and blue are those same vizzes. And I'm looking at the running sum of all the visits, and then on the x-axis of the days that they've been published. And you can see that vertical spike in visits that goes up to 16,000 for the London one and just over 14 for the other one. That's insane. So I'm like, yeah, sure. I do that all the time. I just go viral. That's just how I roll. Sure. So I feel like I'm walking on sunshine. But then I do some further analysis because, of course, that's what we do in Tableau. And I look at some other metrics that I have. So those of you familiar with website metrics, I'm looking at a few other things, like what's the bounce rate of my visitors, how much time did they spend on my page. And the 2 highlighted, again, are my 2 vizzes. And I get a little suspicious here. We see that they're very, very close to the 100% bounce rate mark. And the time on the x-axis that was spent on that page is pretty close to 0. Excellent question. So what is a bounce rate? So in this case, it means that when someone hits my viz, they don't look at anything else. They hit it, and then they bounce off. So in most cases, when you go onto Tableau Public, you look at a viz, you look at another viz, you kind of browse around a little, right? That's more typical behavior. So when we look at all the ones in the background, that's more usually what we see in behavior. And also, those pies, first of all, pies on a scatter plot, right? That's pretty cool. No? All right. All right. So my 2 vizzes are almost exclusively orange. And in my little color legend, that stands for a direct source. So again, that means people just typed in the URL of my viz. And often we see people doing it a little bit more organically. They either Google it, or they get redirected from a website, from a blog. that's often how this goes. And the other pies are a bit more evenly distributed, except for mine. You know, I was like, okay, that's a bit weird. I get really, really suspicious, and I kind of want to investigate this a little bit more. So I'm now looking at a bit of a global view. So I'm looking at all the visitors from all over the world, what they look at. And I have the same analysis that I had before. And we can now actually see that the viz with the most visits is not mine. It's another really famous viz on Tableau Public. It's a beautiful dashboard made about bird and plane collisions. It's made by Kelly Martin, who's just incredible. So you should check that out if you don't know this one. And it very much deserves to be up here, right? No questions asked about that. We still see my ones here. Much fewer visits than I saw before. The plot thickens. Because now I'm looking at only one state, which is the state of Washington, where we're currently in. And when I filter this dashboard to only the state, we come back to that amazing spike in visits that I saw earlier. And that's when it dawns on me. I thought I was a really big shot on Tableau Public. Yeah, all right. It's okay, sure. I don't actually care about this so much. Yeah, I don't even care. So what this means, though, regardless from the actual outcome of the story, is that I could use Tableau to not only explore that data that was completely unfamiliar to me, but I could also present it in a way that makes sense to everyone who views this. So I could create a story that had a nice story arc, like if you were to read a written story, that draws people in, right? That gets them excited, that makes them share my pain, right? And my joy in the beginning. And this is, of course, possible with combining both the exploration of the data and the presentation side. Now, just to clarify, of course, I made the story so it's fun. I did not create those two vizzes. Those are real Tableau Public vizzes about London and the one on Instagram. They're not mine. I just said they're mine because it makes the story better. I don't want to take false credit here, right? And just to conclude this little bit, that's also won the competition. So I am the current Tableau Viz Whiz. Yes, thank you. But with that, I'm going to leave it, and I'm going to turn it over to Ryan here, who has an equally fun story about a very, very different topic to share with you.
All right. Thank you, Saskia. So like Saskia said, mine is also an equally fun topic that I'm very excited to share with you guys today. In the spirit of coming back to Seattle for this conference, being in the great Pacific Northwest, and since it is September, the start of another college football season, I want to share with you a story about a history of one of the best and most bitter rivalries in college football today. It is between the University of Oregon Ducks and the Washington Huskies, right here from Seattle. And I'll give you this history. I should tell you, though, full disclosure, I am an alumni of the University of Oregon. We'll keep my bias out of it, though. There you go. That's right. One guy in the audience is on my side. But I swear I'll keep my bias out of it. We'll share nothing but the objective facts. So you guys don't have to take my personal opinion. I'm going to give you a little bit of a history of the rivalry and also a history of what ensued at the Seattle headquarters for the rivalry week last year, where I found myself up against hundreds of Husky fans for the fun trash talk leading up to the event. But a little bit of background for those of you not from Seattle, maybe don't follow the rivalry. It's been going on for a long time. Has a long tenured history, very competitive. It is a little bit one-sided, though, in recent years. As you can see there, that Oregon's got quite the streak going against the Washington Huskies. And outside of just the game itself, there's a really fun rivalry that takes place every year on social media with the fun that Twitter can bring us all these days. There's an account that spawns up every single year called Last Time UW Beat UO, and it's an account started by Oregon students in which they too share just fun facts, keeping biases out of it, illustrating just the impact of how long it's been since the Huskies last beat the Ducks. This is a good one here, that Netscape Navigator was the most popular web browser the last time Washington beat the Ducks. And a personal favorite of mine, not here on the slide, but I'll share it with you anyways, University of Washington has never seen a win in high definition. Pretty amazing. Yeah. But anyway, so to take you back to kind of the fun rivalry that ensued at Tableau's headquarters last year, I myself was a product consultant like Saskia, but working out of the Seattle office. You can imagine I work with a lot of our sales reps day to day at Tableau who come straight from the University of Washington, and they're very passionate about their team. The matchup last year actually marked the Ducks going for 10 straight years to beat the Huskies, an entire decade for win streak. And College Game Day, ESPN was coming to town, and there was a lot of fun going back and forth. And I decided that I really wanted to take these fun facts from Twitter and do something fun in the spirit of the rivalry and something in Tableau to kind of go back and forth with all my friends that were rooting against me that week. And so I looked for inspiration of what to do with these facts. And I don't know if you guys have seen this. This is Ben Jones, who runs the Data Remix blog. He helps decide the Tableau public viz of the days as well. He had a great viz that had nothing to do with college football on Felix Baumgartner, a gentleman who climbed up into that spaceship a few years ago with the big Red Bull sponsorship and live streamed on YouTube, jumping out from space trying to break all the world records. And Ben just had a really fun dashboard here where he was taking the impact of that event and comparing it to all sorts of fun facts in pop culture to illustrate really just how impactful that event was. So he showed how long Felix was actually airborne dropping to Earth compared to how long Tom Petty's Free Fallin' song was. A lot of fun stuff like that. And I thought this would be a great idea to do something just like this, but with all those fun facts from Twitter like you guys just saw there. So I came up with my own Tableau viz to share with all my coworkers the Friday before the big game. Put myself out there that I really was counting on my school to back me up so I could show my face at work the following Monday. And I've got this great viz here that breaks down in how many years it's been since UW last beat UO, compares it to other events, how many weeks it's been, comparing it to other events, and how many days it's been, just for the fun of seeing it on all those different time intervals. And then I've got just a great chart here at the bottom illustrating the spread of victory there over all the years. And so I took this and published it up and shared it with first all the coworkers and then threw it up on Reddit. And in case you guys can't read all those fun facts, we'll go through a few of them one by one here. But I have on this first chart of how many years, shows that it was 9.95 years right before the game going on that 10-year win streak. And I did decide that it was fair enough to give one bar higher than that rivalry in the whole graph, which was years since Tableau software was founded. So for everyone who thought Tableau was just this really new, hot company, it's actually been around for a while, 10 years at the time. And sticking with kind of technology, comparing it to how many years since Facebook was created. Well, that's in more recent memory than the last time UW saw a win in this rivalry. And looking at it compared to years since Google IPO'd, same thing, also in more recent memory. If you actually look at it compared to the years since the iPhone was first introduced, that's in way more recent memory, just 6 years ago, to really hammer home the point of how long it's been. But outside of technology, came up with a few other fun facts to kind of illustrate the impact. And if we look at the weeks it's been, when you tallied up how many weeks it was at the time. It was 519 weeks that the win streak had been going on. And I compared that to really the glory days of my middle school dances, back when Ja Rule was atop the charts. That seems like ages ago, but that was actually in more recent memory when Ja Rule last had a top hit, just 462 weeks ago. And in movies, not just in music, if you look at how long it took for the Lord of the Rings to complete their trilogy from start to finish, that too was also in a quicker time frame and done in just 416 weeks compared to the over 500 of this rivalry. And the smallest one on the chart here, the weeks that the Beatles were atop the charts with a #1 hit, that was way down there, 175 weeks. Could have done that many times over. So not just weeks and not just years, but if you look at days too, just to kind of put that into context, it was 3,600 days, a little more than that the streak was alive. And you compare that to the days it took Lewis and Clark to complete their expedition. So this isn't just get to the West Coast, but come all the way back. That could have been done several times over as well in the same amount of time that the Huskies are taking to finally end this win streak. And if you compare it to the days that it took to build the Empire State Building, we could have built quite a few of those because that was only 405 days. And actually this one was fun because I remember on Reddit when I threw it up there, a couple people had the comment of, who knew, just 405 days for the Empire State Building. It's pretty impressive. But you guys get the gist of it. Again, no biases, just the straight facts here. And so I had this on Tableau Public, and like I said, I posted it on Reddit as well, so it got a lot of attention that Friday before the big game. And this is actually one example of what kicked off a lot of the attention when the University of Oregon Assistant Athletic Director retweeted the viz, and I got several thousand views after that. And so you've got this Friday before the game, and it's really getting a lot of attention, by far the most attention that day of all the Tableau Public vizzes. And the public team, which is based at the Seattle office, has to nominate every single day a true viz of the day and post it on Tableau Public. And while that team has a few people on it from the University of Washington, they did acknowledge what was clearly the viz of the day that day and posted it on the front page of Tableau Public. And immediately, they were met with quite a few angry letters that a Seattle-based company would have such a thing on their website. This is one, I won't share the name of the person, but one of the gentlemen on the team who was in charge of approving this went to the University of Washington, and his wife was from the University of Washington, and being a great wife, she subscribes to all his viz of the days that get posted, and she immediately sent an email to not only him, but managers as well that she knew, and said, I hope this was just a rogue employee who created this steaming pile of dookie, and that it was not sanctioned by Tableau. I'm sure this rogue employee was quickly fired, flamboyant, fluorescent, ducks paraphernalia confiscated, and he or she was handed over to the appropriate authorities for torturing. So I did get him a bit into the doghouse, and I had to buy him a beer to make up for it, but nonetheless, he didn't stop this from getting the attention that it deserved. And so what happened then the next day? Luckily, I put my money where my mouth was, and Oregon backed me up and came into Seattle and knocked them off 45-24 and extended the win streak to 10 straight years. So going on a decade now, and they still haven't been knocked off, and I would encourage all of you who now know a little bit more about this rivalry to tune in October 18th and see when this matchup heads back to Oregon, and we'll see if the Ducks make it 11 straight years. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, sure. So if you have any questions for any of us, please feel free to ask them now.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes.
I can show you quickly if you want. The question was, if we end up putting the story points in the wrong order, is it possible to move them around? And yes, you can. For example, I'm going to mess up Ryan's vizier You can just click on it, click it down, and then move it and place it wherever you want. Yeah. Yeah.
When you were demonstrating for us when you made the changes, does it change the underlying dashboard at all, or does it just change your business story?
Okay, the question is, when I was doing the demo for the earthquake story, if I make changes on the story point, does it change the base dashboard or the worksheet? No, it does not change the base dashboard or worksheet. So you can make your findings and take snapshots of that, but it's not going to change the base dashboard. No, it does not change the base dashboard.
All the way on the end. So you can only interact with it on Tableau Desktop. On Tableau Server, you can publish.
Yeah, so you cannot do web authoring, but you can create the story on desktop, you can publish it to server, and you can view it on server, navigate through server, you can look at all story points on server, on public, on reader, all of them.
Yep.
The captions up at the top, is it possible to format those or change the shape of them, the color, or
At the moment, it is not.
We are working on it. Oh.
can you create actions that permeate through other parts of the story?
Yes, you can, just like how you can do on dashboards.
Pictures that are there, are they done directly in story, or are they done on worksheets and then brought in?
Do you know that?
They're probably done on a dashboard or a sheet and brought into the story.
Can you export the whole story to a PDF?
Yep.
Yes, you can. The question was, can you export the whole story into PDF? Yes, you can. Any other questions? Yeah, sure.
So the story point sheet, we treat it exactly like a dashboard. We shape everything there.
Are you talking about, like, can you edit stuff within here? Yeah, so you can drag stuff in, but you only have kind of one area. So what you need to do is you need to go over here onto your sheet or dashboard and format that like you want it to be, and then you can drag that into your story. Right now, there's no editing within here. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that question was, can we show how we set the viz to fit to the story? So if you're in here, there's this option, and it's always going to show up at the bottom for all your stories. If you have multiple stories, you have multiple ones show up here. Correct.
Right.
So for the dashboard you're putting in the story, you can size it to fit that story. Yeah, so you can resize the story, which will resize the size of the story, and you can fit any dashboard or worksheet you're going to put in the story to fit that story. We can show you. Maybe we can take it offline and show you. Yeah.
Questions. One, on the server, when you publish it, if you're in editor mode,
Mm-hmm.
can that person edit the story points at that point or not?
No, it's not available. Web authoring is not available.
Okay. So if they don't go into edit on one of these, they can still manipulate the work
Yes.
of it, but the story won't be up.
Yeah, the story sheet will not be available for editing.
So the stories behave exactly like dashboards when published to Tableau Server. If you're familiar with our web editing, you know that you can edit the individual sheets, but in web editing on server, you cannot edit the actual dashboard, so the stories behave exactly like that.
And in terms of performance, when you're adding story points, how's that going to impact performance? So if you do those sheet tests, render, so if you duplicate a dashboard, and then you multiply the number of times, the number of points, will it impact performance? Is that true or not?
So again, each individual story point, if that contains a dashboard, it behaves in the same way as if you were to change tabs, because we only render one at a time, right? So of course, if those dashboards that you put inside of the story are very complex, they might take a longer time to render, but that would be the same as if they were just individual dashboards. Does that make sense?
So if I have one dashboard, though, and it takes 3 seconds to render, but then I break it up into 5 story points that showing different parts of it, is that multiplied by 4? My 5 seconds becomes 15, so that whole thing to render.
Well, it does depend what you do on it. So it's hard to say what if there's any like linear sort of. That's hard to say. It will behave though like just having dashboards on individual tabs, if that makes sense, because they will only render when they're served up, right?
Do you have a question?
So we're trying to create these kind of repeat stories on a monthly basis using the same measuring that you're doing. And when you're updating the workflow, can we use a previous month's, is everything going to be there with the refresh data? You would obviously go in and re-comment your ratings and Kratos, et cetera, but can you use this as a kind of a baseline and reuse the story line that you built?
Yeah, if it's a live connection, it should update. Actually, internally at Tableau, we use a story to track all of our bugs.
Okay, good.
Also, if you're not using a live connection, so the question was, how do we deal with updates? If you're using extracts, of course, you can refresh that as well if you're not using a live connection.
Yep.
Ins and outs of story points. What are the outs?
Yeah, no, one of them that we definitely wanted to make sure that we showed to everyone was this fit to story button. That's something that's not super obvious to discover, but as you noticed when Anila first made her story, when she dragged it in, it didn't quite fit. And only one.
There's a long way to go. Like we can allow like more formatting probably. Right now we don't let you format the captions and things like that. So we are also looking to hear from you how users are using it and what are you interested in, so that we can work on that, giving it more focus. There's no limit. Mm-hmm. So that's the action someone asked. I think it's like a dashboard, so you should be able to do that.
And if anyone is interested in talking about formatting, we are the storytelling, dashboards, and formatting team, and we are having a focus session at 1 p.m. You can find it on your app. It's not in the normal schedule. It's in, I think, like meetups section of your app, and it's going to be in the Sheraton. So if anyone wants to talk about formatting or complain about formatting, we would love to hear you.
Any feedback. We're always looking for feedback as to how you use the product, and we want to make it more pleasurable for you to use it. Any other?
Cool.
Yes.
So you mentioned the linking, so I can link to one story point to another. Like I can skip 5 and go to. If I put an action on my dashboard, I can link to any other points.
I believe so. I might have to check with the dev and let you know. I'm not exactly sure about that.
Okay, we're going to stop talking on stage, but if anyone has questions to talk to us one-on-one, we're going to stay up here for a little bit longer.